Good morning, everybody. Wonderful. Very good to see you. What a beautiful place. What a great location. I think a while ago I gave a message in Hatch End, and the main topic was sacred space. Does anybody remember that one? So here we are in our very own sacred space. I talked about how that was very universal to all cultures and all times, to want to separate out from the world, whether we call it the fallen world or just have fear about the kind of, animals that are out there or whatever. People made protected spaces where they could commune more deeply with the good spiritual world and their God. So we're doing the same. Nothing new in religion, as they say, right? So today, as was introduced, we're celebrating these two holy days put together, Chil Il-Jol and Chil Pal-Jol. So Chil Il-Jol, declared July 1st, 91. This is the day when true parents who fulfilled responsibilities of restoration vertically and horizontally. This is very much Father's understanding of things which he's passed on to us, and did so vertically in 8 stages and horizontally in 8 stages. So this was the kind of inner course of True Father's life, how he mapped out, I think in a similar way to making sacred space, how to reclaim something back from the fallen world, from Satan's grasp, Satan's realm, to make God's realm. First of all, centering on himself, that he could grow and develop and be standing as a true parent together with his wife, with our true mother. So they charted this course in a very measurable way, or a way where they could say at each of those points of development, this has been accomplished. I'm now on a different level. Satan has to back off, and I declare God's victory. So Father would have proclamation days. It's amazing how many there are, right? When you see them, not only ones we celebrate as holy days, the kind of major ones, but there were ceremonies that Father made, sometimes with just 2 or 3 people, and we heard about it afterwards. So it was very genuine, and it was really an interesting kind of charted course, if you like, and an example of how to do this in a perfect way, like a perfect example to us all. Even though it might be difficult for us to chart exactly that course, I think there are things that we can do which bear similar kind of structure, and we can notice certain points of development in our own life which match that progress of true parents. So the foundation for true parents to enter God's direct dominion was laid, we can say, by their completing their portions of responsibility through establishing the cosmic standard of restoration. And Father talks about the standard of the right of the elder son, the right of the parent, and the right of kingship. And then, because of this day, it's like God's blessing cannot be shaken. It's eternal, and it's there. So due to this day, we can say, it's possible to enter an era where there is no resentment or grievance in front of the true parents. And interestingly, I read, where one can do whatever they want, as long as they are centered on true love. That means it's a progress towards a world of unbounded freedoms, actually. It's what we all want in the end, isn't it? We want freedom. And we heard about the kind of things which capture people's minds and hearts today in a bad way, but they need freedom from that, liberating from that. The world needs liberation, just to enjoy life as it's meant to be. And that, of course, means everything has to be centered on true love. So we can also say, because it's a day of our true parents, our founders, having fulfilled this, with that they could say, well, that's the parents' responsibility. Now it's the children's responsibility. And that means all of us, of course, right? So we are entering a time, and that's also something that can be thought of as a declaration day for tribal messiahs. And that's all that I'm sure many of our families, most of our families, are involved in some way or other. So that means a kind of another stage of development for you, which is being outlined and encouraged. I'll quote True Father. He said, "All blessed families must not forget that there's a mission for all of you to complete. You need to establish a realm of victory that even Satan cannot remove by establishing the standard for restoration of these same things, actually. The right of the elder son, the right of the parent, and the right of kingship that Adam and Eve had lost." Well, that chill ill means 7 ones, right? So 7 ones aligned in that date. And later on, in 97, so 6 years later or so, this is when Father declared Chill Pal Joel. So that's 7 eights, or actually, technically, it's 8 lots of 7. So Father timed it exactly. So not only 97, but the 7th month, that was July, and it was the 7th day, July the 7th, at 7:07 in the morning and 7 seconds. So everything, a whole alignment of sevens. Isn't that interesting? That even somebody should be looking out for that and recognize that coming into being. So this was the day, which we're also celebrating today, when it was declared that the era in which God could exercise full authority had arrived. It became possible because of the establishment of the realm of God's Sabbath, and also there was the victory of the 3.6 million couple blessing, a worldwide blessing ceremony on this kind of completion stage level, etc. So when we live according to God's principles, then as long as we are centered on true love, we have immense freedom. So we could have reason to celebrate today. I think these 2 holy days show how true parents, as I mentioned, gave order to a path in which any human being should reclaim lost freedoms and really stand as a true son or daughter of God. So I wonder, did you do this in your life? 8 vertical stages and 8 horizontal stages? I'm no one to talk, right? I can't say that. But you can notice, if you start to analyze certain stages of development and moves on to different levels in one's life. Even it can be things that, in a way, everybody goes through. A wedding is a very clear point, isn't it? When you get married, that's a change from that individual course now to a family level course. It's a beginning point, and that's also, I think, why we mark it. And the birth of a child is such a thing. If you have your first child, and that's already a stage that's different. It might be more mission related. So perhaps for much of your church life, you've been involved in local things and doing a good job there. But then you get encouraged to do a more national mission. So that's a different stage, a different level, isn't it? Or it might be an international mission. You're asked, could you be a national messiah or something, which is a weighty term, isn't it? So I remember being asked that and feeling absolutely snowed under with responsibility. And We chose our national Messiah countries by a kind of lottery. Do you remember that? Anybody who was involved? You did this kind of selection of lines, and somehow it comes out with a unique answer for every person. We might use the word random, but of course nothing is random in this heavily spiritual world influenced environment. So, well, our nation, my wife never made it there. That's probably my fault, right? Our nation was Seychelles, this kind of tropical paradise in the middle of the Indian Ocean. Well, I went there, I think, a couple of times at least, and have stories associated with that. But it certainly gave one a chance to feel different, almost like, well, this is my nation. I never had that feeling so clearly as that. Of course, it's just 80,000 people, and almost everybody's door is open. You can just walk in. So we did the blessing. I was there with one sister from Thailand who lived there but didn't want to really have the title of national leader. But we went around with a tray of holy wine, and you could just walk in somebody's house and say, hello, and start talking and having a conversation. Would you like to receive a special blessing? Oh, yes, we'd love to do that, So very easy. You could feel, yes, some people are living maybe closer to that ideal, that kind of freedom, than many others of us. So in Father's teaching, Reverend Moon's teaching, then we talk about indemnity conditions, don't we? Indemnity conditions, specific actions that are taken to atone for past wrongs and align oneself with God's will. These actions aim to restore spiritual and historical deviations and emphasize personal and collective responsibility. But they also have the advantage of being bounded. They're usually time-based, and they are encouraging of great sincerity and integrity and foster personal discipline. So I think indemnity conditions, when we set them up ourselves, they're a way of getting a handle on our kind of wavering and changeable nature and attitude. Usually when you decide to make a condition, if we think it's like, I'm going to fast for 3 days, right? We know we all have a kind of battle going on. We have, as we describe it, an able mind and a Cain-type mind. Everybody with me on that one? So you have two kind of minds. One is slightly kind of more godly mind and wanting to do those good things. So when you make that decision at the beginning, I'm going to fast 3 days, do you think that's your able mind talking or your Cain mind? I don't know. If it's your Cain mind, you're already on a way to winning, I think, right? But probably you could say it's your able type mind. And maybe some point through those 3 days, maybe as you're passing a bakery shop or something like that, some not such good thoughts come in your head. Maybe you're thinking, why did I ever start this fasting thing, right? I could do with something right now. But that's your Cain-type mind talking, and you use your able-type mind to say, get out of here. I don't want to listen to you. And you're getting a kind of steadiness through that time. If that should even happen to you, right? It might be just me. But you have a chance to kind of prove something, and you've defined it already. And by the end, if you've done what you set out to do, and your heart is still, very much in it and sincere, you can offer that to God, and you can feel, I feel God accepts that. And I think from now on I can go on to something more. So it's a kind of step, a measured step, right? So I'm reminding us of this very obvious thing to unificationists, but I think it's a good practice and something actually that we can take creatively. So these 8 vertical stages, I'll remind you, are pertaining to levels of spiritual development vertically and different types of relationships. So they start with servant of servant. That's the low point, right? And then move up from there to servant level. And then adopted child, and then stepchild, and then true child, and then mother and father and God. 8 stages of developing. And even each of those, so, when you're adopted child, for example, at this level, a person is considered an adopted child of God and is beginning to establish a relationship with God that's beyond just mere servitude of the kind of servant level. And then that can progress. And when you come to be really at the level of true child, it signifies full restoration to a direct child of God, experiencing God's love and taking on greater responsibilities in God's plan. So I wonder, can you identify, and this is a topic for afterwards over your sandwiches and things, right? Can you identify some times in your life when you went through these clear stages? I certainly remember my servant of servant stage. My first mission, this was when Reverend Hayashi was a driver for our performing arts team in Japan, right? I was a very young and green member and amongst many elder and respected members in a performing arts team. And although we had responsibilities like you had a responsibility for witnessing or fundraising, or in our case, preparing and performing stage shows, etc., that was kind of common responsibility. But the first actual responsibility I was given was to look after what was called the toilet bag. This was a communal bag, not a rather ugly one, that all the brothers in the team, about 20 brothers, shared because we were traveling around a new city every 10 days and staying in church centers and this kind of thing. So no time for shopping, no money for shopping. We did all that communally, and so this bag had toothpaste and toothbrushes, extra ones, and it had dental floss and shaving equipment which needed batteries and different kinds of creams, because we, you might be surprised, wore quite heavy makeup for our stage show, so you had to have cream to take that off and all the rest of it, and tissue papers and wipes and all kinds of things were in this bag. And the person who was in charge of that had to make sure it was always there when it was needed. And they had to make out that it was always stocked up, which was not easy, because you had to get a message through to somebody to go out and buy something, and because you were running short in a few days and had to have it back and in the bag by the time it was needed. So for me, it was the most difficult mission I ever had to look after this blooming bag, right? And, sometimes I'd forget it, maybe on Mr. Hayashi's bus. I'd leave it there, right? And then we'd be preparing for a performance, and somebody would say, "Where's the toilet bag?" Right? And I think, oh no, right? I failed in this mission. And then the cry would come up, "Who's responsible for the toilet bag?" Oh no! I was so glad when, I don't know if I graduated because I did it successfully or because they didn't want me anymore, but I graduated anyway. So by hook or by crook, I no longer had that mission, and I was very thankful. But really, I was serving or should have been serving the people who were themselves serving, So that was a servant of servant mission. Well, I can recognize that. I don't know what happened since. Hopefully some progress. But This is interesting. And then the uh, 8 vertical stages are matched by 8 horizontal stages, which Father outlines as individual, family, tribe, society, nation, world, and then cosmos or spirit world and God to make it 8. And I'm always amazed if you look through Father's speeches when he talks about these stages, whether vertical stages or horizontal stages. He always mentions every one. Did you notice that? He never takes a shorthand approach. He never says the 8 vertical stages, individual, family, etc. He never says that. He always says each one. So why would a person do that? I think the only reason is because it's important. It's important to them. That is why. And would repeat it that way because we have to learn it. We have to learn it ourselves and have to think how that applies to me. So these things figured very prominently in True Father's life, and he never cut corners in explaining those things. So I want to encourage you to revive your kind of creative approach to making indemnity conditions. How does that sound? We get certain requests from above, right? We get certain things like, there's a 40-day condition starting, and somehow you feel, well, I didn't choose to do that, but, I'm being, in a way, asked to sign up for this. Yes, I, of course, want to do it. But it's coming from above. It's a request from above, isn't it? But in our life, it's my responsibility to make those conditions myself. And I think we can be very creative about it, right? And make measured times and, measurable progress over time, which we can then, build on and add to in our life and use it. Because one thing you can't be in the spiritual life is vague. You can't just say, well, I'll try doing more of this, No, it has to have something very specific. I remember, again, I'm taking really early examples in my life, but I was inspired by the singing of 2, soon to be 3, holy songs this morning, right? And I decided, as again quite a young member, I would go to the attic of the headquarters in New York, in West 43rd Street, where there were disused squash courts. And one quality of a squash court, like a little tunnel you pass through, it has amazing acoustic, right? So I thought, well, I'm going to use this night. I think I was starting at midnight. Nobody knew. I took my holy song book and I said, I'm going to sing all 40 holy songs. Anybody else done that? David has done that, right? I once did it for a group as well, much later on, Livingston House, but I said, I'm going to do that. I don't know how long it's going to take. I'm just going to do that. The advantage of doing some indemnity condition is, for much of the time, most of the time in religious life, it's a condition of what we call lesser indemnity. So you get much more out, actually, and great blessing for the little effort you put in. But if that is done with sincerity, you get something very rewarding from it. So, yes, I enjoyed singing holy songs, but I'd never sung all 40 before. But once you get to the end, you know what it ends with, right? Urie soanun tongil. When you're singing the last note of the last verse, how do you feel? You feel, wow, right? And I've felt like I've been through every possible human emotion. Even though the topics are a little bit limited in the holy songs because of the time that they were written. The emotions are not. Every kind of human emotion is there. And light and happy, deep and serious, more than that we can normally sing some of those songs, right? They almost don't fit a Sunday service because they're too deep, right? But when you sing it all, you go through that process yourself. So I recommend something like that. That might not suit you, but I'm giving this message as much to myself as to anybody else here. Let's rediscover a kind of creativity about making indemnity conditions, right? To stimulate something to happen. So, if I want to do some kind of minister's work, maybe I can say, well, I will visit 10 churches and 10 services in 10 churches. Surely by the 10th, I will have met somebody, some interesting person. If it's just left to, occasionally doing it, I might never meet that person. So it's a matter of this kind of focus, this kind of sincerity, almost like a challenge, not only to oneself, but to the help from the spiritual world, And you can say that in the beginning. Definitely by the 10th church, I will have met somebody who's really waiting to meet me and can be a close friend, and I can bring them. Gosh, I should be doing this. So I don't know where this is coming from, but I'm thinking about that. I remember doing another condition. I'm going too long, I'm sure, but I was doing home church work in Queens in New York, and it was very difficult, not getting much result. It's very hard to get a door to even open. So I thought to myself, well, I'm going to ask if I can do a bread and water fast, only eating bread and water for 40 days. And I did say, again, this is the creative bit, that's the only reason I'm mentioning it. I said, well, with the exception that if somebody that I meet as I'm knocking doors offers me some food, I will say yes, right? I remember somebody offered me a tea, which is amazing. I hadn't had a cup of tea for a long time, and some bread and butter. Well, it had the butter. So that was amazing. Such a precious person that I stayed in touch with as well. And, that was something. But God has more blessings for us wrapped up in those things when you do it. So on day 21 of that condition, much to my surprise, I was pushed into a room for what is called matching. If you don't know what matching is, come and see me afterwards. Right? And I was matched with this beautiful young lady in the front here, right? in the blue, right during that time. Interesting, isn't it? Because what I had to go through to kind of be in a position to say yes in that situation, I wasn't really down to be even part of the blessing. What I had to go through meant I had to overcome something in my ego, and I don't think I could have done it if I hadn't been doing that condition. So, I only say that because I want to emphasize that things beyond our thinking happen, when we make those more creative conditions. And enough about me. I just want to close with one of my favorite stories. I'm sure you've heard it from me before, but this was a chance to go fishing after our seminary days, still at the seminary. The year had ended, and Father was fishing, as he did annually, on the Hudson River. And he was on the Hudson River. It was the season for striped bass, which are beautiful, sleek fish that come into the Hudson River that time of year. And Father wanted, and this is his creative thoughts about, making a condition. He wanted to do something to support his beloved wife. True Mother was doing a worldwide speaking tour. You know, do you remember that time he was speaking to her on the phone every night and supporting from home? He wasn't even traveling with her. He wanted to support from home. But again, rather than just saying, well, I'll support you or I'll be praying for you, he said, what can I do to support my wife? And he said, I know, I'll go every morning to the Hudson River, be on the water at 5 o'clock, and I will catch 12 striped bass. Now, some days you will and some days you won't, right? I mean, that's fishing, right? But he said, every day I will catch 12 of these striped bass and I won't come home until I've caught them. So that's a courageous indemnity condition, isn't it? And very creative, right? So Father set that up, and he had one boat, and there was another boat which we were invited to go and join in the same bit of the river, same circumstances. We could catch the same fish, essentially, right? So this was great. I thought, yes, I'll go and do that. So Father then, of course, there was one little obstacle to his fulfilling this particular condition, and that was the law on the Hudson River is one person, one fish per day. And it was police. They had police boats going up, river police, to make sure one person, one of these fish a day. But Father had said, I'm going to catch 12 every day. So how did he do it? You might know, right? He took a boat with 12 rods and 11, they happened to be Japanese sisters, right? Bless them, right? So the boat had 12 people, but only Father was fishing, right? But he could get a striped bass for each of those people. It was landed by his boat. So that was his way to do it. And actually, he was out on the water by 5 o'clock, as were we. And we had 12 people, each fishing and each trying to get a striped bass, right? And some of these were no, strangers to fishing. I had Reverend Oyamada on my boat, and he was, guiding us and this kind of thing. So you had to attach to your hook these revolting bloodworms. Probably my attitude towards them was already disqualifying me from. You had to put the hook through these worms, and they go. Blood would spurt everywhere, But this was what these fish liked. So I was there putting these things on. In our boat, nobody caught anything of the required size, because if it's too small, you have to throw it back. And before Father had caught all 12, and more than 12, he had 15 or 16, so his boat came over and gave us some of those, so that if they were stopped by police, they would just have 12 fish, right? And 12 people. Isn't that curious? And Father went home about 8 o'clock in the morning and got on with business. And we were out until 12 o'clock, noon, in the hot sun. And between us, we still hadn't caught one fish that was big enough. So can you imagine? There's a few spiritual lessons in that, right? I'll leave you to think of them. But one thing that was clear, Father was doing that for a reason, that he had set up this condition to support True Mother. I suppose my reason was just to go along fishing with Father, and that's what I did in the end, right? But I certainly didn't catch 12 fish, let alone one fish. Anyhow, so be creative in making indemnity conditions, and because all of these things that we set up with our able mind are conditions of lesser indemnity, it means that through that small investment and sincerity of heart, God's in a position to give us much blessing, actually, and maybe in ways that we even find surprising. And in the end, we can also return that victory to God and feel, yes, we can move on. So Happy Chill Il Jol, everybody, and happy Chill Pal Jol as well. I hope that you think of those 2 days, which by their title are a little bit remote from us, but I hope you think of them differently and lovingly. Please join me in prayer. Our loving Heavenly Parent, Almighty God, please help us not just to be hearers of the word, but doers also. Strengthen our faith and empower us to live out your teachings in our daily lives. May we walk in your love and grace, shining your light in our family and in our community. We commit the rest of our week into your hands, trusting that you will lead us and use us for your greater glory. This I pray in my name. Amen and adieu.